most times when you open and close this, the light would come on, you know. Yeah. All right, so well, want to replace the board and all that stuff. But and a lot of times when there's no, just unplug this cord up here and then plug it back in and it starts to work. The user is going, but sometimes you get a couple more use. All right, so it's your user that's bad. All right, so we're going to be doing the personality on your dishwasher. And if you buy the user, it will come, but you will have to set the personality. The personality ID, it's a number that represents your dishwasher. So it has a certain number that basically operates the dishwasher. If you don't set it, the unit will not turn on. So in your sheet, when this comes, you'll have a sheet. Now it's a little bit, I'm not sure how it's written, but sometimes it can be a little bit complicated. So I'm gonna see if I can help you understand it a little bit better. So you do have a set of pins, and when it comes, it actually comes, they are not fully, they're basically half installed, which is a little confusing, but follow along and it's not too bad. You do have 2 rows. Hopefully you guys can see. Two rows of pins. And let me take them out so you can see them. Okay. And all those are like that. So the idea is you have to find your model number. Let's leave those off for now. In fact, you can take them all off. Just don't lose them. And that's what they look like. So what you're looking for is your model number. The first 3 numbers of your model number. And for example, if your model number was, let's say, 520, 540, 570, your personality would be 15. And you wouldn't touch anything. It would stay just like that. All of them. If you were, let's say, this guy, 530, 800, it would be 13. And you would leave all except 1. So don't let the number over here confuse you. Just pay attention to what this number represents. What does it mean over here? That's the key. All right, that's pretty much it. You follow along. 9 would represent the left section fully covered, the right section fully covered, and then the middle 2 would be exposed. Just the middle to top or back row. Okay, now, for example, the unit I am working on, it's a, well, last 3 is G55. And 11 represent only 1, which is a second top or second row exposed. So everything will be covered except for that one. And and so forth. So that pretty much covers that. Now, on the monogram, the only difference you're going to run into is the number on the board itself, which doesn't really change anything. It's still going to be the same, meaning when you look at the back, instead of it saying 8421, it will say 8642. That's it. Okay, so I think that covers that. Like I said, just pay attention to where the numbers are. And other than that, pretty straightforward. All right, so let's get to the install port, and hopefully this will help you guys navigate through it a little bit. Well, let me set my personality, kind of give you an idea. All right, so like I said, there's the board. And my number is 11 on my unit. So we're going to set ours. We're going to put everybody back on. Now each one will cover 2 holes or 2 pins. Okay, hopefully you can see that. So the first pin is covered, or first 2 pins are covered. The second, the number 4, we're only going to cover, okay, at the bottom. So make sure you stay on the right diagram now. And now everybody else will be covered over. 2 will be fully covered. 1 will be fully covered. The only one that's going to be exposed partially is the number 4. And that equals 11. So they're all going to look a little different. But at the end of the day, they all function pretty much the same. You just have to know where your numbers are and will be. All right, guys. And hopefully you get the idea of what we're doing. All right, let's get on with the repair. All right, in case you lose yours, let's show you what it is. All right, so what we're doing here now, as you notice, the unit has no power to the display. So we have our new user, and the one that I have there is my tester. So sometimes you may get a bad user and you don't want to take a chance of doing the full dismantle to find out that it has a problem, or maybe you didn't set your personality properly. So what I'm doing is actually plugging in the new user, and we're going to use the harness and plug it into the dishwasher, and it should turn on. If all is well, if your personality is set, the user will turn on, as you can see. All right, so now we can proceed to go ahead and remove the door in the dishwasher, or remove the dishwasher and start removing the door to get the unit on. And of course, first thing you want to do is remove the retaining screws, and hopefully you don't have any legs that you need to lower. Now, I'm marking this so that you can actually slide the unit back in without having to do really much of anything. You get it back exactly where it was. It makes finishing up a lot easier. So now we're pulling the dishwasher out. So now, to remove the door, a couple things you need to do. You have the spring, and all you do, you're going to pull that. It's pulling the spring, and you just pull it over the wheel. And that's that. Leave it right there. And the second one, the same way. Now, all you have to do, disconnect your cable. Hopefully that's already been done. And also make sure that you keep the door closed as you're removing that. And of course, go ahead and disconnect your power wire, which already done. And you can slowly lift and remove the door. That's the vent cover that needs to be removed. And also get something to lay your door on. Don't lay it on the floor. You don't want to scratch the finish. And just slightly push in the vent just to make sure that it passes over when it's time to remove. Now you're going to have 4 screws at the base of the door, and also 4, 2 on each sides of the door at the lower portion. Those are Torx. Now the ones at the base, the first one is going to be a 1/4 inch screw, and the second is also a 1/4 inch, but the first one is a machine, so the threads are going to be fine. And that goes into metal. The other one goes into the plastic, which is deeper into the door, so you can make note of those. And now it's going to be the Torx. I think that's a T20. Now it's pretty much, you're going to lay the door upside down, and you're pretty much going to separate the two halves. It's a little tricky, but it comes apart. You basically push the inner against the outer. All right, set that side apart, and we're going to be removing the user. Now the user is basically 4 screws, 2 in the middle and 2 on the end. And you're going to have 2 connectors. Make sure you plug them back in. That's the large one. And always go ahead and compare, make sure they are the same. And since you didn't have the control piece that I have to test it, now would be when you would plug yours in, plug the unit back under the door, and see if it turns on. If it did not, then either you have a bad board or you have a bad main board that is not powering the user. So, or you did not have your personality ID. So go back and check, make sure those are actually done properly. So to remove this casing, I use a small pick. You can use a small flat blade screwdriver and slowly go around the perimeter until you get the board out. Pretty straightforward, nothing really to it. Just take your time, don't damage it as you slowly work it out. I didn't want to speed this process too much because I want you to see basically how long it takes. And you don't want to damage the casing. Now you want to also compare. Take a look at both of them. Make sure that they are the same. And they are. And check your buttons, make sure they are functioning. Nothing is worse than putting the unit together, knowing that something is not connected or popped in properly, so you have to go back into it again. Now is when you check all those things. And in case you didn't hear me earlier, now is when you can plug the unit back in again, connect your wires, plug the unit back into the unit underneath in the board itself, and see it should turn on. If it did not, go back and check. The two long screws, of course, they go into the center portion. If you notice when I removed them, I kept them in close proximity so that you don't make a mistake. And be mindful if you're using a torque or a power driver, you can easily over tighten, so be mindful. Don't forget to plug your wires in. Now this portion is a little tricky. The best tip I could say or give would be to get the two mated together, and once they're all sandwiched properly together, you push down and they should lock. Now imagine like an opposite and they slide into, it's almost like, what's the best way to explain it? Imagine there are some snakes, they have the backwards teeth, and you can push in, but you cannot pull out. You pull out, and it basically locks you in. So it's pretty much the same way. Once the two screws are securing the unit at the bottom and on the side, it locks the unit in. So to insert the door, you push down, it locks it. So it wasn't too bad. Just takes a few minutes. You have to make sure that everything lines up. Just don't force it. You should not have to force it. It literally drops in. I was going to suggest if you have these clamps, you can use those to squeeze the unit together as you try and squeeze it together. Usually the bottom is what you need to squeeze and then slowly push down. Be mindful of that chrome trim that's around the top. You do not want to damage that, so be super careful that you don't break that. Better angle here. There you go. All right, all looks good. Double check your buttons again. All right, so now we're going to be screwing this thing back together. Those are Torx T20. Those are machine screws. The first ones are in metal to metal, and they're fine threads. So they're going to be the machine screws, and the second ones are going to be into plastic. Don't forget your vent. Make sure the gasket is seated properly. And snug it up. All right, so it's time to put the door on. You really can't mess it up. You do have 2 tabs, and it sits right on it. You go ahead and close the door. And now it's time to pull your springs. Pretty much just watch the rest of the video, guys, and enjoy. And if there's something else, I'll jump back in. And just be mindful of your finger. You don't pinch it.
It's beeping.
All right. It's alive.